Well, hello everyone. It has been a ride. I am not going to get into the details of everything that has happened in the life of yours truly, but oh my goodness, I have been through some learning, and today marks, I'm going to say, kind of a big moment, even though I'm also trying to make it not a big moment. I'm also going to try something new on this particular episode, where I'm going to see if I can get a transcript of my speaking. So there's going to be lots of things happening in front of my face, and I hope that it's all going to work out just fine, and I'm not going to be totally distracted because I'm trying something new. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I am Amy van Meijl. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. I'm delighted that you're here. I have started this podcast as Dare to Begin Small and Mighty, and then changed it a few months back to Manifesting Millions. And yeah, lots of fun changes. So first things first, I recorded an episode in, I believe, February, all set to launch, talking about something that I wanted to share, was really excited about, promptly left it sitting in my recordings, waiting to go nowhere. So I think I've now deleted it. I actually don't remember where it has gone because it's been kind of a wild ride. So what I wanted to talk about today are the three things that you're doing right now that are stopping you from having joy in your life. Joy is something that feels very near and dear to my heart, and it's something I've talked about on the podcast before, and it's something that I think we dismiss much too easily in our conversations, in our desires, in particular when we're talking about big issues. I have really amazing, very smart, intelligent, informed people in my life, whether they're friends or my love or colleagues. And no matter the conversation, but in particular when it's talking about some of the big challenges that exist in our world, there's a tremendous lack of joy in the conversation and in our voices. And that translates into our lives. And then I look at what's happening in the news or on social media, both of which I almost never read or pay attention to because they aren't my jam. And I found years ago that those are joy stealers. And a lot of what I'm seeing is that there's just not that much joy. We don't know how to cultivate it. We don't know how to call more in. And to be honest, I think we're kind of terrified of not only asking or looking to create more joy in our life, but even admitting that we're lacking it. And that's a sad thing to me. I think that we are too easily committed to struggling, to hustling, to grinding, to saying I have to give up these things in order for my dreams to come forward. And I'm willing to bet that none of your dreams say, hey, let's not have joy in my life. Also, as a complete aside, I just realized that as I was getting everything set up, I forgot to actually plug in my microphone. So this is just recording off of my phone. And since we're 4 minutes in, I'm going to just keep going and trust that it's capturing the sound correctly. But if I sound different, that's why. And we're rolling with it today. So, joy. I could talk about joy for hours. It's something that I have intentionally worked to create in my life. And I don't love the word worked, but some of it was work. I found myself 7 or 8 years ago very, very, very depressed. Just disconnected, disengaged, seeing lots of on the surface, good things in my life, but feeling miserable along the way. I remember very distinctly one evening, he was then my boyfriend. He's now my fiance. He'll soon be my husband. But at the time he was my boyfriend, he went out for a guy's night. And I was sitting at home by myself. I was sitting at the kitchen island, feeling just so down. He came home probably about 9:30, telling me all about the evening and whatever stuff that they were talking about or did. I don't even remember, but I do remember him distinctly saying there was a prominent politician in Alberta at the time. I don't think they were still in office, but they had been a politician. And he said that person had died in a plane crash earlier that week or a few days ago. And my very, very first thought was, man, he's really lucky. And it took me a few moments before I realized what that thought was and what that thought meant. I was sitting in my kitchen listening to my boyfriend, who I love very much, tell me about someone who died, and I was jealous of someone who was dead. And that really stood out to me. It was as far as siren calls go, that was a siren call in my life that something needed to change. If I was jealous of someone who had just died, my life was not going in the direction that I wanted it to. And that started a long journey that I'm still on, still very much on. What I will say is that every year, I said this to my fiance last night, every year is better than the year before. And I am not going to say that the last 7 or 8 years has been easy. It definitely hasn't. There's been moments that I'm like, what the heck is happening right now? Why am I here? Why haven't I learned these lessons? Why do I seem to be, keep doing this to myself? But every day, every year, my life has gotten better. It has gotten more joyful. It has gotten easier in a way. My toolbox gets better and sturdier and filled with more tools, more easily used tools over and over again. The resources that surround me continue to increase, and that's not just physical resources, say like money or home or my health, but also resources of support. I have the most amazing network of people around me, and I've been going through a particularly hard time lately, and that support network, that resource bank that I have, has been my saving grace and has really helped me pull through some very, very tough times. And every moment I create more joy. So I've been thinking a lot about this for quite a while. And I mentioned, I'm 99% sure that I've mentioned in previous podcast episodes that I wanted to create a learning about joy, and specifically how to create more joy in our lives. We are not taught to create joy. We are very excellent at creating struggle, at focusing on hard work. We're amazing at hustling and grinding, whatever that looks like for each individual. But we're not taught how to create joy. In fact, how often do you hear, you talk about dreams or desires that you have, and immediately it's followed with, well, be careful what you wish for. Or you're having a really great day, and that thought pops into your mind of, oh God, I got to be very careful because I don't want to get too happy. It might go away tomorrow. Brené Brown talks about the vulnerability of joy as well. And if you haven't watched her Netflix special, I highly recommend it, or read some of her books. But joy is a very vulnerable emotion. Nobody would actively choose, like if I asked you today, would you choose suffering or would you choose joy? Every single one of you would very likely say, Amy, what a silly question. I would choose joy, of course. And yet, day in and day out, we choose suffering and we're afraid of joy. We're afraid of letting it come in, which is the first piece in terms of our 3 things that you're doing now that are stopping joy in your life. We're choosing fear. It's as simple as that. We are terrified to allow joy to manifest and grow in our lives. We're terrified to admit that we're joyful, that we feel happy in this moment, because the moment that we do, it must have to go away. We've been taught that we need to allow and expect for the balance, but that balance is always make sure that you're ready for the hard stuff that's going to balance out the good stuff. We're not taught, we're not even really modeled how we can be in our joy. How can we just be in that moment? How can we let more of those moments come through? How can we build trust to say, yeah, this is joyful, and I trust that it's okay for this to be joyful, and I trust that more will come. That's a big deal. The second thing that I'm guilty of all of these myself, but the second thing that I see happen so often is something I call vulnerability avoidance. To feel joy, to feel happiness, is to be vulnerable. In order for you to allow yourself and acknowledge, hey, this feels really good, it means that you need to almost put down the armor of being ready for the next battle and set it aside and go, no, this is really nice. I'm okay with this. It's scary to be vulnerable, which is why the very first thing is that we choose fear. And the second thing is avoiding that vulnerability. I see this all the time. I find crying fascinating. And I find in particular, not the physical act of crying, although I do find that interesting. Just biology in and of itself is interesting. But pay attention to people's reactions to tears. Whether it's the person who's crying or the person around them who's crying, it's fascinating. All you're doing is you're having an emotion, and actually your body is needing to release cortisol, which is why you're crying. That's it. It's your body needing to release cortisol. It's part of a release mechanism as part of your physical form. Needs to release this pent-up energy. Emotion is, I'm sure you heard this, energy in motion. And yet we're ashamed of it. We're terrified of it. We think it means something about us. Very specifically, we think it means that we or the person crying is weak. It's the polar opposite. I've been in countless coaching and growth sessions where the person is really feeling this deep emotion. And that emotion could be anything. It could be gratitude. It could be stress. It could be fear. It could be excitement. And tears come. And there's this immediate embarrassment of, oh my God, I'm crying. That's not okay. Tears are just tears. We don't have to make them mean anything. They just are. But we avoid that perception of vulnerability. If others perceive us as vulnerable, then we are somehow in danger. And joy is a very vulnerable emotion. In that moment when your heart is full, or you feel grateful and just happy, and that like joyful spirit come through you, it feels very, very vulnerable. and it doesn't need to. And even if it doesn't need to, but it is, that's also still okay. So we avoid being vulnerable in every possible way that we can, which is robbing us of our joy. And the third thing, which is in some ways maybe the most fascinating to me, is complacency. I had a very interesting conversation this morning with a executive coach. I met this person for coffee. I met them on the ski hill. It was a great sort of meet cute. I happened to be skiing alone, and we met on the chairlift at one point, and we had a great conversation. And I said, I would like to learn more about your business, about your coaching, how you started it, how you built it, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff. So we went for coffee this morning and talking about, some of the things that they've seen with clients, some of the things that comes up with coaching. And one of the main things, and anybody who's ever, I was going to say anybody who's ever been a coach, but in truth, it's really anybody who's ever tried to help someone else in whatever capacity that is. You cannot help someone who is not willing or ready for the help. Anybody who's ever had an addict of whatever variety in their life will know this to be true. You cannot will someone to be better. You cannot will someone to change. That person has to make the decision for themselves. When it comes to coaching or therapy or anything like that, you can't force that on somebody. The greatest coach in the world cannot cause a positive effect or impact on someone who is unwilling to be coached and who is unwilling to grow and change. Complacency is this buying into, well, what we have now is good. I'm unwilling to rock the boat. It's not amazing. My, life isn't blowing my mind. It's fine. We are creatures that, for better or worse, we are driven by pain. And I would say more specifically, pain avoidance. How many people, if you're listening to this podcast episode, have avoided going to the doctor or the dentist until you're like, I can't live with this pain anymore, right? You're just like, fuck it. I'm just going to go and see what they say, but I can't handle this anymore. And so we finally do. That is us leveraging pain to cause an action. It's never fun. As I said before, we are really good at choosing struggle. But pain is often a very good motivator. I say that very carefully. I think in the context of this podcast, you'll understand what I mean. But if life doesn't hurt, if it's not, everything's kind of like, it's whatever, we're so much less motivated to create change in our life. We just are. Until I had that moment, that awareness of the thought that I was jealous of someone who had just died, I knew that life wasn't great. I knew that I wasn't living a life to the fullness that I wanted, but I wasn't motivated to change it at that point. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know what to do next. Maybe I'll just try harder. Maybe I'll work harder. I'll struggle longer. Maybe, eventually it's going to break my way. And I had sold myself into this perception of pain. And because it didn't hurt too bad, I thought it's going to get better. And then ultimately when it began to really hurt and become into my awareness of the hurt that I was feeling, that's when I took action. I would love to tell you that I have learned that lesson fully. I have not. I am still in the learning space of that. Very recently, the last probably almost a year has been a lesson in increasing pain and discomfort that really came to a head sort of the tail end of middle of April, tail end of April. And it took a lot for me to realize, oh my God, I have been just grinning and bearing it for so long that now all of these symptoms of this complacency that I've been living in are manifesting in physical form. And even though I knew consciously, I'm like, something's got to give here. This isn't right. Something's not aligned. I hadn't gotten to the point of it being painful enough, I guess, for me to actually take action. And once it did, and I took the action to really focus in on me and focus in on healing and focus in on moving this particular area of my life back towards joy, things shifted. And they're still in the process of shifting, which is what brings me to today. So I mentioned this before, and I, like most people, am not great at selling. I'm going to do my best. We're going to walk this through together. I have created I have created a course that I call Manifesting a Million Moments of Joy. I'm going to teach it live. I have 3 sessions booked in to do the course. I believe, please hold while I pull out my calendar because I definitely have them on a different window. They're all in May. They're all going to be over the next few weeks. And let's just have a look. All right. So very first, Manifesting a Million Moments of Joy. Launch 1 is going to be on Monday, May 15th at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard, which for our Eastern folks is 4 p.m. And if you are on the Pacific, that is 1 p.m. I'm going to host it again. These are all live on Thursday, May 25th at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then one more time before we head over the pond, we're going to be in the Netherlands for a week. May 30th at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. I'm getting real good at time zone math, everybody. I'm going to be teaching this course live. If you are interested to learn more about how to intentionally create more joy in your life, understand the basics of manifestation and how joy is really our gateway emotion to manifestation, I encourage you to join. The course is only $111. I'm big on angel numbers, so it's 111. You can find out more about the course if you go to amyvanmeijl.com/joy. I will also link that in the show notes for you. And for this very special launch, because it's the first time I'm ever launching this and I am mildly terrified to do so, taking a big swing here, the first 5 people to sign up and use the discount code LAUNCH, LAUNCH, will receive 50% off of the course. And anybody who signs up for this course will get lifetime access to it, which means that any future iterations or updates that I do of this particular course, the Manifesting a Million Moments of Joy course, you will get access to that continually. You don't have to pay again. You don't need to sign up again. Highly recommend that you come join me. I'm excited for it. I have gone over the course material so many times, and if you have ever had that moment of imposter syndrome of like, oh God, what am I doing? I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that big. So I would love, if it resonates with you, I'd love to see you there. I'm still working out all the software. And let me tell you, I have been sitting on this for a while. And And I swear the universe has all but walked in my front door and hit me over the head with a bat going, Amy, can you please get over yourself? Bring this out because people need it. They need to hear it. They need to know it. Our world needs more joy. You have this valuable information. Please get out of the way of yourself and share it. So it's a big swing into vulnerability for me here, and I'd love to see you there. So again, the website is amyvanmeijl.com/joy. And I hope to see you there. So that is everything for today. This was we're going to talk more about, taking tiny actions that are big steps. This was a tiny action that was a big step for me. I've recorded multiple podcast episodes. I love recording podcast episodes. I love the idea of being able to share with you and hopefully create some positive impact in your world in whatever capacity that looks like. This is near and dear to my heart, and that makes it feel scarier somehow. So again, amyvanmeijl.com/joy to learn more about the course. We have a few upcoming very soon, and we'll go from there. All right, everyone, I wish you a fabulous day. It's been a little bit rainy here in Calgary today, which is lovely. I actually quite enjoy the occasional dooms and glooms day of rain. It's just so good. Everything turns so green. And I hope to see you in the course very soon. Thanks, everyone. Bye.